Good afternoon, everyone. Thank y'all for being here. We're being derailed. It is currently about 7 minutes after 2. Welcome everyone to this regularly called workshop of the Temple City Council. First item is public comments. Mr. Lyle, you're up.
Oh, thank you, sir. Sure you all know me, Alan Lytle. Over the past 6 months, I've tried to diligently look at the packets that you all receive every 2 weeks. And I can tell you honestly that this totally discouraged me from ever running for city council. Way too much work. The reason I'm up here tonight, my good friend, and I'm sorry, Mayor,
We're good friends.
is, no, that's all I'm sorry about. What I'm sorry about.
Back at you, man.
Staff is about to give to you, making you the emergency management director. I've read through that and you're gonna be in deep trouble, my friend.
No, see, the good thing about this position is it's one that delegates.
You're gonna need
And
to
where's
delegate.
Jennifer? I saw her walk through here. There she is. That's the emergency management director.
Okay, that's an awful lot of work that they're fixing, but on your name, because it has mayor on it.
I sign a lot of stuff I don't do. Everybody knows. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. And we do a good job with emergency management because
Yes,
we
you
have a
do.
very competent, well-trained director. So
That is fantastic, but
that's the day I resign. Okay, so let's move on into the regular work session. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't know the protocol.
No, now you have to stand up and say something.
I know. And I have spoke before the council before at the council meeting and my daughter. First of all, I want to thank you guys for being good listeners to your population, your constituents. I was here and spoke about the second RV part that went in. And my daughter and I expressed concerns and you listened. And many of them were addressed. And I so appreciate that. I did try to go on some website somewhere and find you and send you a thank you, but I didn't navigate it right. So anyway, that's first of all. So anyway. And then, but I did come tonight, maybe in vain, but about the RV park that's proposed, the third one. And you think I'm against RV parks. I've gone all over the United States in an RV, clear to Maine. But anyway, my concern and my daughter's, and she'd be here to speak, but she's working. And she thought she was going to get to speak tonight, but I understand that it may not
Okay.
come up. But anyway, is safety. You know, the where it's how you get to that RV park on 53 is, and 53, Highway 53. If you haven't traveled it recently, it just is.
that's right.
Yeah, it is increasing. I've only been here in Temple for less than 2 years, and I am amazed at how much more traffic there is there. And then again, putting RVs in the way of these people that they go around you, and I didn't know that was possible when I moved here, but it is in a particular area off of a narrow bridge where there's no going around. It's a safety issue. But, and I know you will look into that.
Well, I was gonna say, yes, we will. In fact, we've spent a couple of other workshops, a setting like this, going through and talking about, the safety around RV parks and, entrances and exits and, the fact that it's a longer rig, right, than most people are used to navigating. And a lot of times the person that's driving it, and that's different than a professional semi driver, right? They're not always real, as good as a professional driver would be driving something that's almost as big as a semi. And so, we are very aware of all that. And first is we do absolutely take into consideration the safety of the residents around Temple. And thank you to Councilmember Walker and Councilmember Long for really spearheading that. So very aware, and we're trying to be very intentional as we go through and approve or disapprove or change locations or, whatever of RV parks. So it's on the radar, I assure you.
I'm not against RV parks.
No.
But I do
You have to do
worry
it
about
well.
the citizens here that use those highways, because there've been several bad accidents in that area.
Yeah, we are equally concerned.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
You bet. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Anybody else? Okay, is that it? Everybody?
Well, then I know.
All right, very good. Okay, we're gonna change the work session order up a little bit. We're gonna move item 3 up and handle it now. So first is to receive a presentation regarding legislative. What? Oh, you didn't know that,
I
did
did not know
you?
that, Stacy.
You're up.
I thought I had two ahead of me.
You want us to give you a minute? Are you
No, I'm
ready?
good. No, I'm ready.
After me all the time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be back to give you my first legislative update because session started on Thursday. We have a Speaker of the House. So next comes committees, chairs, and all of that good stuff. So the legislative task force met on Monday. And one of the things that we looked at on our Monday are our policy position papers that I know we've talked about in prior meetings. That we were working on policy position papers for each of our priority policy positions, like a whole lot of words to say. But we've worked on these position papers that essentially describe the city's opinion on these priority policies. And so we have 11, and so I've listed all of them here for us. These are our priority policy positions. So the first one is opposing restrictions to the city's ability to use debt through the use of CO bonds, supporting an increase in basic allotment for public education funding, supporting a change to the public education statutory formula to use enrollment instead of average daily attendance, support for fully funding House Bill 8, which is related to community college funding for the inclusion of private institutions as a fundable transfer option, support for the make whole provision related to the state's disabled veterans property tax exemption program, opposing restrictions on the use of economic development tools. So things like Chapter 312 tax abatement agreements, Chapter 380 economic development agreements, and tax increment financing reinvestment zones are TERS. And then support for legislation that would allow annexation across a rail line for voluntary annexations. Support for legislation to allow for the injection of recycled water into injection wells for storage in aquifers, so our ASR projects. Support for legislation that reauthorizes the authority to establish and enforce juvenile curfews. Support for legislation that would provide additional state or local authority to regulate sexually oriented businesses. And then opposing legislation that would limit the community's ability to communicate with legislators to advocate for our interests. And so council, I've shared drafts of those with you. The legislative task force, like I said, we met on Monday and had some really great feedback that we will incorporate and finalize those papers. But like I said, at this point, the drafts that what you have is drafts.
So if you have any feedback for us, if you will send that to me or Stacy. I also want to thank Stacy. She has done a great job and put in a lot of work on getting the papers ready so that we can share more detailed information with our elected officials and their staff teams to help support their decision making and understand, why we're asking for what we are asking for in terms of policy positions. She also, Stacy also was coordinating with all of our local partners. And so I know we have, I think I saw Dr. Golden.
Over here.
Yes. Oh, and Ms. Parks. So and there's Mike too. Yeah. As council knows, when we set up the legislative task force, we intentionally wanted it to be representative of our community as a whole and not just focused on the city of Temple and our organization. And so that task force involves members from TISD and BISD, the county, some of our major businesses and other business organizations like the chamber and TABA members as well. So She provided these papers to them for their input, and they were very gracious to give us, especially some of the ones where they are the subject matter experts related to public education, and gave us a lot of great feedback. So we appreciate their partnership on that. And I think these are great community.
Good, good.
So, hi, I'm Melinda Golden. I'm superintendent for Belton ISD, and just want to say thank you to the mayor, city council, really so many people in this room. These priorities represent a care and a focus on the wellness and health of an entire community, represent stakeholders' voices, and I'm just incredibly proud of that relationship that we have with the city. Healthy schools contribute to healthy communities. And we just thank you for partnering with all the surrounding school districts, because we all are contributing members and are all a part of this with you in creating amazing communities. And so thank you for including our voice, and thank you for your voices being included in our legislative priorities that we've developed. So we just wanted to say thank you today.
Yeah, thank y'all. Thank y'all very much. It's been kind of an interesting process. We've not done it like this before, and I think it's going to pay dividends way into the future. So it's all very good.
All right, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit and give you some of the fun stuff, pre-filed bills of note. So some bill statistics, like I said, the session just started on Tuesday, but there have already been more than 2,500 bills filed. More than 600 of those are city related. There is a 40% increase. We had a call this morning with the Texas Municipal League, and they shared some really sort of high priority bills with us. And that's what I'm going to go through here, is some of the bills that they've identified that they're watching and that we want to keep an eye on as well. But that represents a 40% increase in bills filed at this point. So at this point in the session, as compared to this point in time in the 88 session, it's a 40% increase in bills filed. So that's a little bit scary. But so I have these broken down by different topics. So on the topic of annexation and disannexation, so House Bill 950 requires the city to provide full municipal services to an annexed property within 4 years. They have a whole list in there. So that's, police, fire, solid waste. It's all city services.
Water.
Sewer. Yeah, everything. That's everything within 4 years. House Bill 377, any agreement that authorizes a city to annex a property cannot have a waiver of that requirement. So you can't waive a written service agreement requirement. Platting and permitting, House Bill 987 moves the building permit shot clock from 45 days to 30 days. House Bill 993 says that only commercial property owners can agree to extend the 45-day shot clock for building permit approval.
Stacy, back on
Yes, sir.
that House Bill, does that have anything to say about if the property is in somebody else's CCN?
I don't know.
Usually they don't. That's one of the problems with that. I haven't read that one in particular, but some of the similar ones that were filed last legislative session created a lot of questions about, like, for example, what about an area like Lakewood, which does not have city sewer service? Under some versions of bills that were filed similar to that, in some interpretations, there was not, it was an automatic disannexation. This was a little bit different. There's one, I'm sorry, I'm jumping. There's one that related to you couldn't annex without full service, and that if you didn't have full service, that you were disannexed. And so like an area arguably about like Lakewood would be automatically disannexed, even if they didn't want to be out of the city because they didn't have sewer. So usually those bills don't have all of the details about, some of those and specifics in them, but I haven't read that one in particular.
If somebody wanted voluntarily annexed and they were in another CCN, we can't give them one necessarily. So-
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I will preface the rest of this is that we had this meeting today at 10, and so I had a whole other list of
Haven't
them.
gotten into the.
And so I've looked up a few that I needed some summary information on, but these are just first blush. Housing affordability and zoning reform, House Bill 878, minimum lot size restrictions for certain cities. There's a couple of things in there about accessory dwelling units, which is interesting. A couple of bills have been filed about accessory dwelling units. And so they're basically saying that the city can't disallow accessory dwelling units. I think related to if they're permitted as a single family home type of thing, property, you can't disallow an accessory dwelling unit. So Senate, SB 673, same kind of thing, accessory dwelling units by right. House Bill 369, no city regulations allowing for more than one single family dwelling on a lot, zoned for single family dwellings. If it was zoned, that as of September 1st of 2023. House Bill 1752, this is by one of our elected officials, Hillary Hicklin. Zoning protest threshold, changing from 20% of the area property owners to 50%. The city council vote related to that would change from being a super majority required to a simple majority. Senate Bill 650.
Wow.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Change anything.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, the only thing that's different is right now, the the super majority is the super majority of people who are present and voting, but her change would be yeah, no, that's.
I mean, it's a simple majority, whether anybody
To approve
protests
it
or
at
not.
all,
So,
yeah, that's
like,
the
protest-
thought process I was
protesting
going
doesn't
through.
change
but- Yeah,
Never mind me.
no,
And I haven't read that one, so I haven't really dug into it. SB 653, state sales tax refund for affordable housing building material. House Bill 287, and also Senate Bill 443, institutional investor reporting and limitations. That was a big thing that they looked at in the interim. There was a committee that looked at that, the institutional investors. HB 1835.
What did that one cover? Really, the institutional investors reporting? What was that what's it focused on?
I'm not sure, Tracy,
Okay.
it's just a blurb I got from TML. I haven't dug into it yet, but I can let you know.
I think it's, like people, entities that are buying housing or,
Okay.
buying, not investors in terms of, I think investor in terms of property investor, and if someone is buying it, like a big conglomeration is buying up neighborhoods, of housing
Yeah.
versus kind of more, local landlords or.
They talked about another bill where they would limit the number of properties that they could only be in. So I don't know if it's in that one. I'm just remembering that conversation that there was a limit to 10 properties. HB 1835 allows installation of new hub code manufactured homes in all residential zoning classifications. And then, so city finance related to debt, one is Gary. HB 1453 virtually eliminates COs, says that COs can only be used for necessary public projects that are related to legal compliance, public health emergencies, disaster mitigation or court orders, remove specific types of facilities, so public safety facilities, judicial facilities, administrative office buildings, animal shelters, libraries, parks, or recreation facilities. All, if this one passes, it's all out. HB 1514 and SB 393, you can't use debt for tangible personal property if the useful life of that property ends before the maturity date. And then HB 1519, all bond elections must be held for election date.
The 1514, that was from the last session too, and the pushback that they received, I don't know if Dr. Bolden has a perspective on this, but was more of like a package, like if you're building a new facility and a component of that new facility doesn't necessarily have the life of the full bond, but you were gonna package it up in that same bonding capacity. That's where there was an issue with that bill. Of
Would
course,
be a major component.
well, like furnishing, I'm gonna say furnishing was the thing, like if you build it, I hate
Yeah, that's
to
a
pick
good-
on a school,
Yeah.
and this doesn't matter, this is not a, this is CO, so it wouldn't be a school, but, you know, a fire station, I'll just say a fire station, if you were going to, you know, outfit it with all of the furnishings, and some of those
Wow.
furnishings might not last, you know, the full life of the building, then, you would have to do either two separate debt issuances, or, which we may do anyway, that wouldn't be, that wouldn't be the end of the world for us, but that's the pushback they got, is not that people were necessarily issuing debt beyond the useful life
Right.
or standalone improvements, but when they were packaged as part of more comprehensive projects.
One passes, the other one doesn't, right? New fire station, no furniture.
Yeah. Nowhere to sleep, bring your sleeping.
That's-
It would be awesome.
Bring your own couch.
Everybody make a pallet.
So the city finance bills related to budget. So HB 325 expenditure caps. Limits municipal and county expenditures based on prior year spending, population growth, and inflation, with exceptions for voter approval or disasters. SB 427 must file public annual financial statement, or the city can't receive state grants. HB 774, any city surplus revenue must be used for property tax relief. It also limits tax rates based on revenue, population growth, and inflation. And then, city finance bills related to property tax. HB 250 eliminates the 3.5% multiplier for voter approval rate calculation and the de minimis rate. HB 416 adjusts various property tax deadlines. It pushes, one of them is that it pushes back the delivery of the certified roll to August 25th, which is a problem because they talked about that today, how it complicates other things that have to happen. HB 217, 60% voter approval required to approve ad valorem tax rate increases exceeding the voter approval rate. HB 763 and HB 1131, the city can't exceed the voter approval rate without election following a disaster. HB 1433, also by Hillary Hicklin, requires efficiency audits for cities that adopt a rate of the no new revenue rate for 5 years. Adopts a rate of the no new, I think I should say, over new revenue rate for 5 years. Sorry. And then on sales tax, HB 924, local sales tax sourced to location where the item is stored before delivery or transfer. That's been a long-standing kind of fight back and forth where who should get the credit.
That's our Wayfair Act.
For police procedures, HB 656, about cite and release, mandate citations instead of arrest for fine-only misdemeanors. HB 909, city liability for action of a peace officer under the color of the law, so it mandates liability for misconduct, enforces stricter use of force guidelines. HB 1765, there's limitations on the no-knock entry by a police officer. Some other miscellaneous public safety items, HB 1715. Contracts with governmental entities. It says contracts with governmental entities must include clauses that allow licensed handgun carriers on the property. So what they were talking about today is that, you know, think the convention center, I don't know, any property that we'd have to allow in the contracts that have to allow handgun carriers, licensed handgun carriers to carry on the property. SB 241 from Senator Flores, the city must implement a process allowing complaints regarding a violation of a public camping ban, and they must act on the complaints or be penalized. HB 1677 for cities over 10,000 in population must conduct an investigation before taking punitive action against a firefighter, and that's regardless of if the city's covered by meet and confer agreement. And then community censorship is, which is really, you know, local advocacy, what we've been calling local advocacy. So SB 239, there's like 6 different bills that have already been filed related to this.
Stacy, real quick,
Yes, sir.
can you go back? Just a quick question on 241. What about bed for a head provision for regarding homelessness. Is that been officially thrown out? Or- Okay. So that's not in conflict. Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm sorry, Senate Bill 239, HB 309, HB 1189, HB 1294, all filed related to political subdivisions, not being able to spend public funds to hire lobbyists or to pay nonprofit state associations that hire lobbyists. So it would restrict us from TML as well. So HB 571 and HB 671 is an alternative to that, which still says public funds can be used to hire lobbyists, but there is an exception for things like TML to provide legislative services, communicate with legislators, and testify for or against legislation. And then some miscellaneous HB 1227 limits city solid waste franchise fees to 2%. HB 294, Senate SB 141. City can't prohibit 6 or fewer chickens or rabbits on a single family lot. I know. SB 506 by our friend Betancourt and HB 1793. Ballot proposition language for home rule cities must be reviewed by the Secretary of State. HB 524, the Attorney General must review home rule city initiative and referendum petitions. And then HB 1522, the Open Meetings Act notice 3 business days in advance instead of 72 hours. And then the notice of budget related meetings must include a physical copy of the budget document. That's all I have there. Brenda, do you want me to take a few minutes and fill out the form? Sure. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'm going to show you, that council may remember that the budget authorized the purchase of legislative tracking software. So I built that tool out and wanted to show you what that looks like. Here we go. So this is Quorum. And I'm on my dashboard. And so essentially, this is sort of my quick homepage where it's going to show bills that we support. I can click into any one of the numbers and it's going to take me to the list of those bills that we've identified that we're supporting, bills we oppose, and bills we're watching. This over here also shows bills that I'm tracking and what's going on with them. I can watch legislators' social media and Facebook posts and things like that, so I can track that kind of thing as well. Any bill that we have identified as a high priority bill, I can track the movement of those as it goes through the legislative process. Upcoming events as committee hearings and things start happening, those will populate there. Those dates for those hearings will populate there for me. And then I have at the very bottom list of bills updated today. So this is really sort of my one-stop shop where I can kind of track things pretty quickly. The tracking board over here, if you'll on this left-hand side are all of my navigation menus. So I can search bills and documents, officials and staffers. There's a number of different ways to do that search, but the search, all of those menu options are over here on the left-hand side. Tracking boards, think of that as my triage. So as bills are being filed, this is where I have set up some keyword searches. And so I'll go into any bill that has been filed and we'll set a stance. I'll review it, set a stance if we're supporting, opposing, watching, or if it's something that isn't important to us. Set a priority, high, medium, or low. I can add it to an issue, which I'll show you our issues that we've set up in the system as well. All of these things are just ways that I can sort of slice and dice and track and make sure that I'm providing the information out that we need to know so that we don't miss something. We can advocate effectively on them. So issue management, the way I've set up issues, they are in alignment with our legislative programs focus areas and then our priority positions. So one of our focus areas is economic development, and then we have the Chapter 312, Chapter 380, and the tax increment financing. So, and really all of this here is ways to help me categorize bills so that I can make sure, again, it's all intended for me to be able to make sure I have all the information so we can take a stance, we can, act on a hearing, act on, advocating calls to action to the legislative task force members and to council when we need that. So that's sort of a really, really quick and high level overview of quorum.
I see down there,
Anything?
bottom, I saw Pete Flores there. Are you able to also track by our specific?
I sure can. Yeah.
That's good.
Who all has access to this? Does this go out to just your staff or others?
So right now we've paid for 4 licenses and that will be, I haven't added anybody else to the system quite yet, but that'll be Brandon, David and Aaron. But Brent and I've also talked about opening that up to others, the legislative task force members, if they're interested. Council, if you guys want to have access. if
I'm
you-
interested.
We have to buy more seats to do that.
Yes, yes.
How much does a seat cost?
We're still researching.
Yeah,
you know, what the appropriate, number is. There's reporting we can also do, so if you're not like a power user, you may not need a seat, you may be able to get what you need from, dashboards or reports that don't include, need to search everything, so. This is, obviously really new and fresh for us. I think it's gonna help us a lot in keeping up with the thousands of bills that are coming in. But we're still learning and kind of figuring out the best way to use it too, so.
On average, how many bills will each elected official file?
I don't know that.
Is there a
Yeah.
limit to that?
Probably varies a lot.
I don't think it, yeah.
There's last session, there was over 8,000 bills,
Mhm.
and there are how many representatives?
And then 154 reps.
So mayor can do the math.
Yeah.
20 reps,
154.
8,000. 50, 77, 53, 52.
I think today at the TML call, they said they anticipate somewhere upwards of 11,000 bills being filed this session.
There's 32 senators, is that right?
There are 31 senators and 150 House members.
181. Divided by 11,000.
About 11,000 divided by 181.
Yes, I'm sorry.
60, 61.
61 bills.
Well, I only know this because we talked about it. Hillary Hickland, our freshman senator, has already filed 16. Representative has already filed
Yeah.
16. So,
Busy.
yeah, busy people.
I think this is really helpful, Stacey. Thank you
Yes, ma'am,
for grabbing
absolutely.
hold of this.
Absolutely.
Yes. Judge Person, I think you all know that she's very active as well in keeping up with legislation that's related to our court systems. And she actually is at a legislative hearing right now, but she did pass on some notes for me to share with you from her work. They are monitoring a few bills, House Bill 743, which would seek to remove authority to jail persons who do not honor a court order. House Bill 799, which would eliminate cash bonds on almost all cases. And House Bill 1588, which would restructure how judicial education is handled in a way that is, in our view, detrimental. So those are bills that she has tagged as concerning and bills that we would look to encourage not to advance through and be opposed to. Favorably, Senate Bill 303, which would provide more flexibility for assignment of interpreters for court cases. Senate Bill 304, which would increase the authority to abate certain nuisances, I think is what she means, like junk and debris nuisances. And then Senate Bill 539, which relates to increasing the ability to accommodate online appearances. And so those would all be bills that are favorable and that she would seek or recommend that we would seek to support. As I mentioned, she is the legislative chair of the Texas Municipal Courts Association, I think is the title. So she is very involved in the process as well from that from the court system side.
What's that about the cash bond, no cash bonds? Isn't that just the, what else do you pay? Okay, or-
Something about letting them go.
Yeah,
That
it
was
just,
listed in Stacy's.
Oh, real big difference, it's just interesting.
yeah, it would eliminate the requirement that, or the ability to require someone have to pay money to get released. So,
Okay.
you would, I guess, I don't know what the other option is other than.
Unlimited chickens. You can't pay with eggs.
Personal, you know, a PR bond. Yeah, personal recognizances is all I know. So it's, I think that bill is usually filed. I don't feel like it usually gets very far.
Which is why you're there, because you got
Yeah.
arrested, because you already promised to come back and you didn't.
The one thing that I
A young
did mention,
person's always much nicer about it. She says, this is a problem as all accused persons behave differently. And the bond should secure
You're a liar.
appearance.
That's what she means.
You're a liar. Yeah, but there was another one that said that you can
Some.
do something if they don't obey the court orders, so.
No, that removes the authority
Not
to jail persons.
that other one?
Yes, so
or
that-
not, or
The other
defining
one
court
seeks
order?
to remove authority to jail persons who do not
Oh,
honor a
so-
court order.
So if they tell you to come back and you don't, they still can't do anything.
Yes, and she said on that one that this is the third session that that's been filed, and last session it went pretty far, so they're watching that one carefully.
I know you have a ton of time whenever you do this, but as I was looking at those names beside the bills, I was wondering where they're, what city they represent? Big city versus little city, you know, just, I don't know. You know, we always talk here about what, you know, the legislative session and what, you know, how sort of one size fits all when something's passed. It'd be interesting to know, where they're from.
Also,
I noticed
with
2
the
or 3
DRR,
names that are just over and over.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Another good thing to add is probably, which again, Stacy didn't have a lot of time on here,
Right.
but, is it a D or an R? Because that can also give you some clues on whether it's likely to advance or not.
That's true.
What's that, Rick?
If the bill sponsor is a Democrat or Republican, because if it's one party or the other, it can give you some clues on what's likely to have legs.
one thing that TML did say today is that, you know, priorities for Speaker Burrows seem to be additional property tax relief, but not necessarily not necessarily to the detriment of the city, more, you know, from the school finance side of it, I think. Except I think that does
Which is
back
right.
into our TERS though, right? But the other big topic is gonna be water, so maybe, you know, they'll all be really busy with those two topics and leave some of the others alone. I don't know.
The water bills would help us.
How much did they say they intend, how many billions towards water infrastructure? It was like a huge. number.
Well, it was like six or 8 billion. It was under 10 billion, but it was a 5, 6, 8, something like that. I don't think I wrote that number down.
That's not that much.
21.
21 or 23.
Right now, today, one
There
project.
were two numbers.
Actually,
One
we can
was
mention
the-
that
They
today.
said at last session.
How much they were going to. That Senator Perry that they were talking about?
Yes.
1.5 billion surplus identified last session. Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah, $23.8 billion surplus.
Total?
But yeah, only 5 billion expected this year for infrastructure.
That doesn't go that far.
No,
Isn't
but
that
then
crazy?
they were talking
So much
about
money.
each session kind of adding
Yes,
more to
yes.
it so that it grows. So it's-
Wait, fun time to make 2 years.
It's interesting. It's irritating later. Anything else before we move on? All right, let's jump in then, go back to item 1, which is discuss any regular meeting agenda items for tonight's meeting. Mr. Myers and Mr. Chandler.
All right, good afternoon. I guess, as an overview, a lot of what I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna show you quickly, because these are items that are, have been requested to be tabled. Starting with this annexation, State Highway 36, for the proposed RV park. As you can imagine, the annexation, which is as a result of the proposed RV park, those go hand in hand, and so that is also requested to be tabled. There's the 19 acres and change. And this is outside of our CCN, outside of Moffitt's CCN, but our lines are probably about a mile away. Water is a big challenge, and so here's the actual conditional use permit request.
This is one that they're a mile away, but between our water line and them is 317.
Right. 317, the Cloverleaf.
Sort of.
Yeah, might as well be, so. Yeah, and so here's the conditional use permit, the proposed site plan at this point, but of course, as I mentioned, it's a lot less about the site plan at this point. Water is the question that needs to be answered to some degree, even really before it makes sense for you all to consider the site plan. All right, then 1814 Split Pea Road. This one has also been requested to be tabled. The developer is still working on a site plan per the last council action. And so just a reminder where that property is located. And so he would bring back something that shows, you know, an actual site plan for a typical townhome site, as well as the buffering, the screening, you know, the actual circulation with road circulation within the development. So as you can imagine, that takes a little bit of design and needed a little bit more time. So that one, as well as, it should be tabled, or at least that's a request. Did y'all have any questions about?
So the first one was at the request of the applicant.
Yes.
Is everything at the,
It is. I mean, it's all coordinating with them.
Yeah.
You know, they agree, certainly staff.
Nothing where staff, where the applicant says move forward and staff says.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
We came up with a split P name for.
Split P, I don't know. Richard, was that you?
No, but I like.
Right.
That was P originally split.
That's right. Zero. That's my favorite street already.
One thing to note on the,
You think?
wish I was that clever.
We all really like the name.
Kenny, that's got Kenny's name all over it, right?
Here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
On the tabled items, it will probably be beneficial to just, for a future meeting to be determined, so that we can make sure that when it's ready to come back and we're not assigning a specific date to it just yet. Once they request, they're ready to go, then we can bring it back. All right.
So we need to say postpone to some future date.
To a future date instead of a specific future date.
All right, this one is not to be tabled, and Mr. Deckman he'll be the presenter. He's been the case manager to Woodland Trail, and this, you know, speaking of the city limits, this is just within the city limits off at 2305 out, very close to Temple Lake Park. And let's see, the site plan, let's see if I included a photo. Unfortunately, I did not. Y'all would know exactly what this property is because it's gas station under construction right there at Woodland Trail and West Adams. And so there's a section on the backside of that property that is not zoned general retail. They just want to clean that up. I mean, the project is close to being completed. So there's really not a whole lot on that. The neighbors do not appear to be concerned. In fact, I don't even know if they were concerned when they were proposing a liquor store Originally, that's what they were pursuing, was a CUP for liquor store. They decided just to do the gas station for a variety of reasons. And that, but the property to the back was identified as, hey, that's where septic is. It's all a single project, ought to be clean zoning. All right, so the other RV park on Dairy Road, once again, requesting postponement or tabling. This one is a lot less complicated. Water, they're at least within, they're already in our city limits, within our CCN. They would need to extend water lines, and really the piece that is still outstanding. If you look at the site plan, this is Dairy Road. This is 53 down here. They have agreed to provide at least a 300-foot wide future commercial strip. And especially because we're also looking at the thoroughfare plan, and thoroughfare plan shows a collector running right through the property. And so we as staff have looked at that to say, well, Dairy Road, if that becomes the collector, as opposed to a new road right bisecting a piece of property, take an existing road that makes sense as a collector and widen it, build it to collector standards. And then the future commercial also makes a lot more sense than Dairy Road right now, which has very little through traffic. So that's.
Right. I'm sorry if I'm breaking protocol.
No, yes.
How you doing? My name is Skibo Reichert, and I live in the neighborhood adjacent to this proposed project. And I'd like to echo her concerns over safety and Highway 53. I've been begging for years to see if we could get a left-hand turn lane into Limewood, because there's been a series of accidents, and I was told by one official, said Skibo, there just hadn't been enough accidents there yet. He goes, that's the sad news. And I said, well, that's a shame. So I would hate for something like this to come in, and also those inexperienced drivers for all those obvious reasons. And it's just, man, we're just really enjoy country living and have it all built up. I'm gonna have to raise my hand on that. I'm not gonna be here for the council meeting, unfortunately. But is there I understand there's an official way to protest or to be counted. Is that correct? Or?
So the way that works is all based on whether you're within 200 feet of the boundary of the project. And so you receive a notice, you return the notice in opposition. And then if 20% or more of the area within that 200-foot radius or diameter is, it results in a protest, then it does trigger a supermajority 4 out of 5 votes at city council. If you're outside of that boundary, it's really just provide a response as a concerned neighbor. It's not, it doesn't count in terms of the calculation, but it counts in terms of council's consideration of the issues.
Okay.
So, Jason is also the case manager on that one.
Should I just email you to get?
Yes, sir.
Counted?
Yeah.
You know how to get a hold of me, right?
See, he has a camera.
I have been known to take pictures.
Well, I'm gonna excuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your input. All right, and before we're moving on to the last item, any other questions other than that will be tabled as well? And we'll also take note in terms of looking at that street that Skibo was talking about to consider that. Of course, there is a condition right now in that CUP about traffic impact analysis, evaluating the impact specifically on 53, but also since it was proposed thoroughfare plan amendment to make Dairy Road a collector, that also kind of changes a little bit of the scope of any traffic analysis. All right, last item for planning and zoning, planning and development, Nama's Temple townhome. So this is located at east of Salmons, west of 41st Street, proposed townhome development. The only reason that you all are seeing it is because of an exception. So if you look at the plat on the right, you can see this, rather than a cul-de-sac, it's what we call a hammerhead street. And so it's kind of it's a small development, kind of an odd configuration. And no homes on the backside, unlike some other previous hammerhead that was approved. But these are 2,000 square foot lots, number of units, or well, 22 lots on 1.6 acres. And so this is one that we've actually continued to discuss, with Public Works, with solid waste specifically. There was support for it, but more of a, hey, we're not opposed. And so it really just raises a question of looking at our standards, UDC, also the development standards, Public Works manual for cul-de-sac, the dimensions, because actually trucks, the newer solid waste trucks, our current cul-de-sac standards would actually not be adequate for just for the turning radius of these trucks as well. So anyway, looking at that, but this is one where, everyone kind of reluctantly agreed to say, okay, we can make this work, but moving forward, I think we take this, it informs future decisions to say what needs to be amended in the code and how do we address these kind of exceptions in the future to say, is this a great idea? So.
So Brian, if I can,
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, so normally this would not be supported.
I'm sorry.
This is not the most efficient way for.
Right,
solid waste
for our
lots.
trucks. It's the most efficient way to lay out the lots.
Yeah.
So for the developer, but in terms of trash pickup, yeah,
Emergency services too.
right.
Can we get a fire truck through there?
Yeah, actually, a hammerhead for us is not as much of a problem as it is for solid waste. We have 3 typically on a truck, or the minimum of 2. So we use a backer.
Mhm.
And so we don't have a lot of the problems solid waste does. They're by themselves, harder for them to back up.
Yeah.
Safely.
Okay.
People
wonder-
would use the hammerhead for parking
Yeah.
so they're
Yeah.
likely they're gonna be in the way.
It's a more narrow
Anyway.
street, right? 'Cause it's private drive.
It looks pretty wide there.
Yeah, it does. It meets our public street standards, right, Richard? In terms of,
It looks really wide on the hammerhead parking spot.
yeah.
Oh.
So here on the site plan, rather than homes, there is overflow parking. So that's a preferable configuration, still not ideal. And of course someone's parked there and it might as well be a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Right.
like, okay, yeah, we're
So
taking
that
out a car
recommendation-
rather than a house.
That recommendation is going to be to pass it.
It is, it's with reluctance, but we talked about it and said, look, this can work. Especially at that stage of, discussion, that it can work. Solid waste said they can make.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Don't have to.
Yeah.
Plus, there's still,
With all the trash cans out front, right? 'Cause each.
That's
one
right,
has
because there's no alley access. So,
That's a little too tricky.
that's
yeah.
a lot of overflow.
Especially a
parking
private
for
drive
parking.
too. What if they hit something, or if they damage something? Have to fix that too.
How much of that overflow parking would they lose if you put a cul-de-sac in? Half of it?
Well, that's the problem. Cul-de-sac would actually have to start really back here. So you probably lose 8 lots to meet our
Pretty dense though. as it
cul-de-sac
is.
standards.
How deep are those lots? Do you know? Do you know how deep those lots are?
2,900, I think.
Those are
Just over the.
100 feet.
Well, they put a cul-de-sac and shove them up pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we have, it's one of those of, we have all kinds of challenging, obstacles for the trucks to have to navigate in an urban setting but it's one of those of, okay, do we want to create new ones? They do have cameras on their trucks back.
So the setback from the street, like, would they actually lose 3 or 4 lots per side?
Yeah, I
I
think.
mean, that would be a third of the lots, right, from 24 to 16 if they lost.
Right.
It's pretty dense, 22 lots on 1.6 acres. That's a lot of density.
16 is a lot of density. Hmm.
So Brian, I'm sorry I didn't catch up with you on this, but we talked last week, Public Works was really concerned. Did they
Right.
review it more and have a different?
Yeah,
Brian, I'm online if you'd like me to take that.
Don, help us out.
So Bryn, the ultimate goal for solid waste collections is for us to be able to get in and out of a neighborhood without backing up. And so, of course, with a hammerhead, regardless of how big it is and how wide the streets are, it necessitates backing up. And so if we were to force them to build a cul-de-sac at our current standards, our current minimum radius for a cul-de-sac is such that if people are going to be parking in the cul-de-sac, which they probably will be, that it will still necessitate trucks to back up and kind of scooch back and forth. So if a cul-de-sac is built in excess of our current requirements and it's not too much of a lot density and you don't have people parking in the cul-de-sacs, then we can do that without backing up. But if we were to require this particular development to build a cul-de-sac according to our minimum criterion for that, they would be parking in the cul-de-sac. There would be lots of cans and lots of cars, and we'd be backing up anyway. So we didn't feel like it was fair to require a cul-de-sac if we're still going to end up having to back up and scooch back and forth.
As a condition of providing service on the private drive, could you restrict parking on the cul-de-sac so that you can provide the service without backing up?
We can, we've had that conversation quite a bit with previous townhome projects. Just because of the reality of, just tighter movements, and just the density. And what we've heard from police and public works has been that, in code enforcement, primarily really, that no parking enforcement is so unbelievably challenging. So rather to avoid that, we've talked about, having lay down curbs in, different situations so that people can actually park over a curb. So rather than trying to say, look, making it a code compliance or code enforcement issue. So yes, I think it can be done. It's just, are we setting ourselves up for other challenges?
That's typical density, right? For a townhome project.
It is, yeah, the 2,000 square foot lots, those meet the minimum standards.
Is there any green space?
Let's see, green space. Yeah, that's right. Detention, so they would pay park fees.
The site plan, because typical density.
It's a single car garage or no garage?
With the.
Single car garage, I believe on these, could be
Typical density would allow you to have a cul-de-sac.
Jason or Cheryl.
This is Cheryl's case. I don't know off the top of my head.
remember if they have it over here. It's just a driveway.
It's only 20 feet wide. Oh, the
Yeah,
whole lot.
lot's only 20
Oh,
feet
yeah.
wide. There's probably a single
Single.
car, single driveway.
Yeah, one in the driveway.
Yep, that's typical.
I feel
Two vehicles per.
Okay.
They only had the one parking space on site and they need 1.5. I don't remember.
They could buy the lot to the north, they could connect it to 43rd.
Kind of a tough one, right? Either way, you don't really get what's best.
From a purely logistical standpoint, I think that in this particular case, with everything that's there, short of just saying no to the development, a hammerhead will be cleaner than a cul-de-sac would because you don't have houses fronting on that hammerhead, because your parking is clearly identified and contained, and there's not gonna be cans to pick up in that area. There shouldn't be a whole lot of just general day-to-day traffic cruising back and forth on that hammerhead. So that realistically will probably work out better in this particular instance, given this layout. So the only thing that changes that is if your density is less, or if you, if you were just doing something different with this property, then there's probably a more ideal way to do it. But given the density and given the street, it's probably cleaner to have a hammerhead than to do a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac's gonna require you to do the kind of back and forth, backing up, going forward, backing up, going forward. And this way you pull in, you turn, they back up one time and come out.
Oh, stay out of the hammerhead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Chief said, they don't have issues with them. It's actually in their code that they're.
Say it again.
Hammerheads are actually in the fire code.
Oh.
Fire.
Okay, what else?
That is all that I have.
Council, preliminary questions?
I have one more question, though I'm not council. Would it be helpful for the backing movements if parking was not like right at the end of the hammerhead? Or that doesn't matter?
You'd probably turn right into one side of the hammerhead, back up in the left side.
Right.
Yeah, as long as they stay out of the hammerhead for parking.
Yeah.
It
Drive aisles, and it's not an issue.
We talked about portion directly perpendicular, having it not have parking, but people are gonna park there anyway.
Mayor, if I can, and Richard, you probably can answer this one better than I can for sure. The only problem I see with this one at all, as far as we're concerned, would be the size of the detention pond, limiting some of that other side of the hammerhead. I mean, that's, I think, gonna be the biggest challenge for both of us, fire and solid waste. Just depending on how deep that is. I haven't seen the measurements on it, but that could hamper us a little bit, but, like I say, that's my biggest concern is that detention pond.
Because if there was an emergency, you couldn't pull far enough in.
It's possible to hit them all.
The detention pond is just simply in the way.
Yeah.
If there was an emergency, then
Yeah. Yeah.
Looks like it's about 50 to 60 feet.
Yeah, if it's that much, we're probably fine. It's hard to tell. I haven't seen a drawing with measurements on it, so.
I'm eyeballing it with that 42 at the bottom.
Yep.
The center of the intersection, it looks like it's probably 60, 65 maybe.
The way I looked at it, there's a 20-foot wide road leading up to that hammerhead, and you can swing out with a 25-foot radius. There ought to be enough room.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. All right, next is to receive a presentation regarding, you know what, before we do that, I don't think we talked about anything that might need to be pulled from the consent. We had one on hold, one on file.
Yes, on a mess.
This item Q is related to the Brownstone project. That's not.
We need to pull that for,
I don't.
simply because it's not gonna be presented.
Well, it's being withdrawn by the applicant, correct?
Correct.
You need to pull it, read it in, and then say it was withdrawn.
Is it postponed?
No, he's decided not to apply. They had 8 other applications and they were more competitive than his, so he's decided not to apply.
All right, so we're tabling Q, pulling S for voting consideration. We'll leave it in and table. Correct? Yes. All right, anything else, staff?
Mayor, I would just like to point out item E, C on the consent agenda, which are both resolutions ratifying a truck purchase and a truck rental for solid waste, or truck rentals for solid waste. I certainly hope that you guys approve those. I've said that before, otherwise I guess I'm going to move it out of business because I bought myself some trucks. But those should go a long way to help our service provision. So I did want to point that out that Preston and Nick want to get those before you, and in the interest of not losing the opportunity and getting them here quickly, I went ahead and authorized the contracts with I hope you would support those.
Let's.
DNC.
Are those trucks on the ground now? Well, I know you've approved them, but are they here?
Yes.
Great.
Those are new trucks?
They're here in use or getting, right?
The commercial truck has been in use for a little bit now, and I believe we just recently worked out the terms on the rental. So the rental trucks are all actually new from the folks we're renting from. They're on the ground and ready to go.
Are they logoed yet to the city? Do they come or?
No, they won't.
They have to
The
be
rentals won't have logos.
later.
They'll just be blank.
Are those ones that were is there like a rent to own?
There's an option. Yes, there is. an
Those are the
option.
ones. Okay. Are they? Yeah.
Didn't recognize. Yeah, it wasn't.
You tell them, I don't know you, don't pick up my trash. Get out of here.
You're a bastard.
Yeah. They won't have, those 4 residential trucks won't have city logos unless we work out a deal to purchase them. Which we can't do until we rent them for some time.
Oh, okay, okay. And so
Because
that's,
we would have purchased them if they let us, but they wouldn't let us, so we're gonna rent them and
so that's 3 or 4 rentals to purchase.
4 rentals and 1 purchase.
Okay, so a total of 5 trucks after the rental agreement,
Purchases of commercial.
assuming we don't truck.
The
And then-
purchase is a front load.
So 1 front load, that's the commercial one, and then 4 residentials?
Yes.
Correct? And then, new trucks still due in March or April,
March.
and that's 4 more?
I forget. I don't have that one in front of me. I don't recall how many. Don, you recall the number from above?
Justin's logging in right now, David, to answer that.
That'll be quite, based upon that presentation we got, right, with total number of trucks available versus number of trucks in service. That almost doubles, assuming nothing else goes out, right? That almost doubles the amount on the street every day,
Right.
right? Pretty
That
close.
should put us into a good spot.
By March, say by March, we'd have all of them.
Justin, could you unmute and give us a quick update on the truck situation with solid waste?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Currently, we have just enough residential trucks that we're able to cover our routes. If we have one break during the day, then we're one down is where we're at right now. Commercial wise, front load, we're good. Roll off, we're good. Brush and bulk, we're running 6 trucks today.
And what is the delivery status of the new trucks?
March.
And how many is that?
We should get 2 in March, 1 in April, 2 in June, and then 5 in September.
2 in June and 5 in September?
Yes, sir.
Calvary's coming. We
No
just need a few more months. So thank y'all for your patience. I know it's been hard.
That's good though. Now, is that, of course, I think what council hears most about is residential. So that's 10 trucks, not all those are residential.
No, sir. 11 residential trucks by September.
Yeah, but of this 10 that you just went through, how many of those are residential, do you know?
All of them.
10 new residentials by September.
11? Is there 11, Justin?
11, yes.
Spread out from April through September coming in. Is that right?
March to September.
Go over it one more time for us, Justin. We're lost.
Okay. 2 in March, 1 in April, 2 in June, and 5 in September. Is that
10.
That's 10.
okay? I'm making a mistake. I'm doing this off the top of my head. There's 11 that's coming.
That's okay, Justin. We will get it. Thank you. That's very helpful.
One more time, all those are residentials?
Yes, sir.
Ralph let me know that we also have a rebuild. So that's where the 11th is coming from. That's a refurbishment.
That's right. Yes.
To be completed.
Probably March.
Thank you.
What's the 3 residentials that are on the ground now? Or rental?
Yes, sir. The 3 that we've rented are residential trucks.
And how long have we had them? The rentals? How long have we had the rentals?
Through February. Or
How long? have
When did
had
we
them?
get them?
we got them in mid-December, so should be towards the end of February when the current deal is up. But
Right.
we can keep them longer if needed.
That's good. That should help. That will help.
I don't think so.
Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen, online.
Thank y'all.
Okay. You bet.
Thanks, Mayor.
Anything else on that, folks? We're still on item 1. Anything else, staff or council consent, the regular agenda, or can we move on? Good? All right. Moving on to item 2. Was receive a presentation regarding proposed age-restricted tax credit project from Brownstone Affordable Housing.
And this is
That's
being,
the one that's being,
yes, sir, the developer has decided to pull their application completely
all
from
right.
competition this year.
And so that is you
Yes, sir.
on consent. Got it. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, last, is that last? Nope, second to last is to receive proposed changes to the city ordinance code, chapter 8, emergency management. Jennifer Henniger, the emergency operations director, and myself, who is also.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you take the lead?
Do like, here you go. I'll go sit down.
It will be quick.
Well, it really will be quick. So chapter 8, got a couple of proposed changes to present today. So currently it is titled Civil Defense. We haven't used civil defense since the 70s. So my first proposed change is that we call it the emergency management chapter. Once we started referring, FEMA came into place in 1979, and that's when civil defense started going away, started being phased out. So we need to catch up with current times and rename it. So the only other proposed additions, that's the only proposed change. The other two are proposed additions, adding 2 sections. So section 10 is adding the section, the authority that the mayor has to declare a disaster. So that'll be section 8. The verbiage, the authority comes from chapter 418. The verbiage I borrowed from our friends in the city of Houston. And then section 12, adding about our outdoor warning sirens. So we get lots of questions about those. So I thought it would be beneficial to have that in there. Modeled that verbiage off of the city of Keller about kind of what their purpose is. And then our activation criteria, I pulled that from our internal operating. When we activate, what we're activating for, what the purpose is. I'm sure we will still get they're going off, they're attacking type comments, but hopefully this will help with some of that. We can direct folks. So those are really my only 2 proposed additions, and then the change for the title. I love that. I found that a year ago. That's my favorite question slide. So.
Okay, so since we're kind of running all ahead of time, I have a real quick story about
Go
civil
on.
defense.
Okay. Okay.
My father-in-law was the first Eagle Scout in Throckmorton County. You may know where Throckmorton is? I don't recognize.
No clue.
And so he showed me one time, we were in Throckmorton, and he drove me out to where they had this telephone poles, right? And they had like an enclosure, not even an enclosure. It didn't have a top. The patio on top of these telephone poles. And his job as an Eagle Scout and other scouts in his troop were to stand there and watch for Japanese or German bombers when he was a kid. So in Throckmorton County, Texas. So
Did he ever see them?
I don't think he did. No, he probably slept through a lot of it, really. So,
Probably saw a lot of that.
yeah. So whenever I see civil defense, I think, oh, Fred. But he was ready.
That's a great question. That would be.
They probably, I promise you, they didn't give him like a flaming arrow or a radio. Like, I saw him coming. He's about that big. So they were more.
Look for a fellow old.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, y'all, this is serious business. Item 5 is to receive departmental updates from purchasing and facility services and planning and development.
Belinda is on her way.
Yeah.
That's okay, Mayor?
You did? Follow this agenda.
Mayor's story time on the agenda, like that's how
All right, good afternoon. Been a while since I've been before you to give updates, so this ends up being a, what's that?
That's a pretty slide.
Oh, yes, Mr. Detman. You know.
That's what Throckmorton County looks like.
Is that Throckmorton County? What's
Just
the
outside
capital?
Salado near, what's?
I mean, the county seat.
Throckmorton.
All right, West Texas?
It's near the big ranch in Salado that I can't.
Penrock?
Penrock, thank you.
Yeah, kind of north, northeast.
Oh, okay, all right, there you go. All right, so we have a lot of new faces, especially over the last, really since October. And so just wanted to show you a quick glimpse of some changes. Not major changes, but I think certainly significant in terms of the impact, particularly on our permitting and plan review system. And one of those is the fact that we, with city management's guidance and finances guidance, were able to take our permit supervisor position once that was vacant and reclassify it as a deputy building official. And so that process, that person is in charge of not only the permit text, but also plan review. And so really just having a more comprehensive management of that whole process. So of course, we still got community vitality as one group with preservation, neighborhood planning, and particular planning and zoning, plating and zoning cases, and then permits and inspections. And so let me just show you, well, we'll get back, we'll come back. So we had 6 new hires since October. So it's been busy. And I think they've all been really good additions, at least so far. And also back during the summer. So MGO Connect, so transitioning to the new platform, which is much more user friendly on the applicant side, on the customer side. And then I'll tell you in a little bit just about an update that we will move to later on, probably this summer, but just continue to work with IT and Kelly's staff, and especially Allison, our new deputy building official, who is really good at processes. And so I think y'all are meeting weekly, looking at different improvements. You know, when I came back from leave, I was just anxious to just make changes. So thankfully, they've all said, hey, let's slow down. Let's take a look at this comprehensively, especially since we have the staff now to get out of the hole we were in from a permit perspective, or basically caught up. And so now we're in a position to be able to just kind of slow down, look at it comprehensively, and not make knee-jerk reactions like I was willing to do.
I would just like to say when we were meeting yesterday, we were looking at the application. We went to go look at applications in the queue and there were none.
Yeah, that's never.
Isn't that
I don't think that-
amazing? Not one.
I don't know if that's ever happened, at least.
We had to search a couple times, hit that button. We're like, what?
And it's
Yeah.
not because we stopped taking.
Or the system set that.
Or that the volume
Right.
went down. It's amazing what a few key staff positions can do for you.
Yes,
And Allison is doing great.
She is.
yes, thank you. Well, and so I'm just going to introduce you to the new staff. And in chronological order of when they were hired, Angie Sotomayor, permit tech. We stole her from McLean, and she has been fantastic. This was early October. So this is Eric Clovenish, our newest combination building inspector. We have a new building inspector. Let's just say he's a better inspector than he is a model for photography.
He's not fitting up the.
Yeah, he's like, man, I got 50 inspections, but you want me to take a picture? But no, Eric has been great. He is a plumber by trade.
Eric doubles as a security guard. He
Does,
I was checking out my subdivision the other day that's going on, and he called Pat Patterson's guy to see who the dude in the blue truck was.
oh, I did not even know. So,
Yeah, okay.
Maria Herrera, who started the Friday before the Monday that Allison started. And so she was also previously worked at McLean. And so Angie knew her, recommended her, and she is fluent in Spanish, and she's been fantastic. We lost our permit tech who was fluent. And so being able to get her skills has been really important, because I know I underestimated the number of times that we really need to have, a Spanish speaker. And honestly, I don't remember what we did before that, but it didn't work. So I knew that. And there's Allison, our new deputy building official, started on November 18th. And then John McGowan, new chief building official. So he started in December, so he's 5 weeks in. So if he's come to a council meeting, I don't know if everyone got to meet him, but he's originally from Liverpool, England, and so he sounds like one of the Beatles. But he spent his professional time most recently in the Houston area, building official for Tom Ball for University Place, but he is also a former builder, and so he understands all aspects of the process, and he's been really good to work with. And then last but not least, Derek Lopez, he is our new building inspector. So he's gonna work his way up. He's really learning from our veteran inspectors. He actually was a superintendent with one of our local builders, and so he's coming from that side of it. But yeah, so he seems to be enjoying it, and so he's working on his various certifications. All right, so looking at just accomplishments within the planning and zoning side of the department, in addition to hiring new people primarily in permits, well, we've also had some vacancies, and then some folks that had an opportunity to get promoted on the permitting side and applying and getting promoted within the planning and zoning side. So the bottom line is, when folks have left, I'm very privileged to have such good employees that are cross-trained and capable to step in and get promoted. And so we had 5 of those just, since the last time we had this discussion. And, so that whole process, keeping PO very busy and finance and the city manager's office. But yeah, it's exciting to see that kind of growth within the department. Also transitioning to annexation. So this past year, fiscal year, 372 acres of annexation, and that does not include proposed annexation on 53, but just those that have been approved. And that represents 0.765%. So round up, and that's a percentage point. May not seem like significant growth in the city limits, but I'd say from just voluntary annexation, I would argue that is significant.
I don't remember doing that much.
So yeah. And then just from a CISGrants perspective, I get a little bit excited about the project. Travis Wilkes, the owner, on the other side of Main Street from us, that CISGrant has been completed, or actually there are 2 of them. The facade grant, the life safety for elevators and fire suppression, still working on that on the interior, but you can see that the preservation primarily of the second floor, but on the first floor, adding storefronts, and so I think it ended up being a good project. And a lot of times during that process, I was wondering, I'm sure you all were wondering too, but I think it turned out well. All right, just some other, I say accomplishments. That's really not accurate. These are not really, they're not department accomplishments, but I think they're development accomplishments. And so we want to really give credit to the developers in this case, or owner, in this case, Extraco, the new Extraco Bank. I know that Bo is not excited that the bank covers up the beautiful mural there, but on the flip side, they did at least put in a nice little courtyard, and they didn't have to do that. That is not in the CA standards. It encourages it, but they did it, and so that is a good example of new construction meeting the central area standards, and of course the previous project of rehab meeting the central area standards. And so just proud of both of those projects and how they turned out. Also, Mayor, your favorite fence, Techstar. So Techstar Travel Center, Nugent, I-35. Hopefully most of you don't know this situation, but it was confirmed, there was a complaint by a neighbor, and it was confirmed that this development really should have had more buffering and screening. I think something got lost in the shuffle, maybe because it was an existing building that was converted. Either way, that the standards require buffering and screening, and working with this developer to put up a fencecrete, or essentially precast panel fencing, which I think the point of this is to say we're looking at this as, with our UDC updates, as a way to upgrade those requirements from what's currently allowed, just a wood privacy fence, but give options, and to say, that actually is a great form of screening where you don't have much room. It's 8 feet. You don't have, maintenance issues. You don't have the pickets with spaces in between and light, headlights coming through into someone's bedroom window. So anyway, I think it looks good. And it's just a good, something for consideration for the UDC.
When they were about 10 panels in, I drove by and I actually stopped and went and touched it to see if it was real. And that's one of those things where, my opinion, the owner was, any proposal that was given to them, they said, oh, we can't afford it. Finally, it was, trees, right, buffered trees with a sprinkler system, said, we can't afford it. That's the third time they said, we can't afford it. I said, forget it. Put in concrete then.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Yep.
So I think it's just good to remember that they will keep on and keep on until finally. Yes, okay, how about I plant 3 gallon boxwoods? Will that finally work? I mean, because they probably said, oh, we might can do that one. They just kept on.
That's right. And so in the future, maybe we can start with that and say, look, this is just the cost of doing business. I think it's a $38,000 fence, which is not inexpensive, but for what you get, and you look at, having to replace a wood privacy fence 3 or 4 times over the same period, then it ends up being kind of a wash.
Semis were left idling overnight.
Yeah.
So, leaving right behind that fence are some mobile homes. Right? And people couldn't sleep. It was just a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. So
thanks for
thank you, Mayor.
Thank y'all for
that.
hanging in there.
Buford and his team, they got it moving.
Did that go down both sides of that?
No, just all the way down the west side. As to the north is those are RVs.
Oh, okay.
So the screening is required between the manufactured homes on the west side because they're actually dwelling units.
They're saying it was compliant, because there was a fence between the properties, but it was the people on the mobile home, it was their fence down the hill.
Lower,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was
But yeah,
that was a good one.
good try. That doesn't fly. All right, Blackland Ranch, I just wanted to bring this, point this out. Many of you are aware of this, but this is the first residential development that meets the TMed South standards and without any PDs, without any exceptions. And so one thing I want to point out is that they put in their playgrounds at the beginning, as opposed to when kids within that neighborhood are graduating from college, which we've heard that story before.
Yes.
So, no, this is great. They've got right. And just an example of the single family homes, they've got, the TMed standards with the sidewalks throughout, the street trees between the back of curb and sidewalk. And so, yeah, it's just down there at Blackland and South Fifth Street. Their townhomes are also, first phase is getting completed. All right, turning our attention now to community vitality, preservation, neighborhood planning. Some of the recent accomplishments, under Kelly Atkinson's leadership, and really this was her idea, working with the developer to preserve the Bird Creek, 1839 Texas Ranger and primarily Comanche battle, and Bird Creek, the namesake, James Bird, lost his life in that skirmish. But anyway, that project to work with the developer, preserve that as a park, a neighborhood park, really a public park, and then the dedication happened, I guess that was in November. Photo, I know Mayor and Bren spoke, and Ayana, who is our preservation planner that is handling all that. She spoke and did a great job. So, and she's also the project manager for the Historic Resource Survey, which is essentially kicked off in December. We've got a public meeting scheduled February 5th at the Santa Fe Depot, that first community meeting. She's also managing the neighborhood improvement grants, which As you all may recall, that is part of the CIS funding. And these are smaller grants, up to $10,000 for rehab, mainly of homes, but other buildings. And so she's been busy with that over the last really 2 weeks. I think January 6th, we started to receive applications. Historic district entry signage. And so here you can see from the neighborhood planning district program, these are the first neighborhood signs. I think they've turned out really well. I believe this is at French and Fifth into the North Central Historic District.
Anyone know if that has a backlight to it that lights up the historic word? And it was flashing.
Huh.
And I wonder if it's been fixed.
All right.
Anybody know? I don't see, that was Aaron and Nancy.
Yep.
Knew about it.
They were trying to call attention to it.
I know. I said, I don't think it's supposed to do this.
We'll find out. I don't believe it's supposed to flash.
No.
Okay, we'll find out. And then this is the smart sheet we've had 12 applications for the neighborhood improvement grant program just since 6. So that's exciting, but it's also, I think what is most exciting is that these applicants are very excited about it. And so thanks, to you all for for funding the program, because it's good to see the neighbors get excited about having that opportunity and maybe get a project done that they wanted to do, and maybe we can help make that difference. All right, significant plans over the next 180 days. So I need to hire a new assistant director, so that process is in progress. TxDOT grant for Third Street sidewalks, that's a project that has been part on the KTEMPO list for several years now, but to submit that in February.
Yes, sir.
Just for the overall TxDOT call for projects. So Jason is in charge of that. The NGO transition to the updated Connect, NGO Connect. So we went to the first version of that during the summer, but they have an upgrade. Several staff, including John Dorn from Kelly's team and Allison I guess she'd been with us for a week, went to the conference in New Orleans, where NGO is based near there in southeastern Louisiana, and learned about what opportunities are coming up. And bottom line is, one of the issues right now at the NGO is that what the customer sees versus what we see on our end, they're not the same. And so that, as you can imagine, creates some issues. It's difficult to speak the same language if you're not looking at the same thing. So that will change. That interface will be very similar. RV park code amendments, Jason, thank you for that. Other minor UDC amendments.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
On the MGO transition to updated Connect form, is that updating the MGO, or is that moving to a new program?
No, it's updating MGO.
Okay.
So still there's still a lot of opportunities to utilize what they have already had available.
Okay.
But especially they're making changes more rapidly now, because as I think, y'all probably know, keep it short, but it's software created by building inspectors in Louisiana. And so it's a little bit different. This was in response to Katrina. So it's been almost 20 years. Well, so, they know, they understand what we are doing, but there's also the challenge of, okay, well, this is a company, this is an agency. How are they going to be able to respond to the market demand as other cities go to MGO? And so I think they are starting to get that and are making a lot of changes to kind of keep up with the industry. And so that's been good. Just minor amendments, been working with David on these. Some of these that y'all are certainly probably all aware of: car washes, FM 37, the 317 overlay, foster home, and CPS home standards, like the Stratford situation that y'all are very aware of. Conditional use permits for power generation uses like battery plants, etc. And then requiring utility service agreements for industrial developers, make sure that water, that's a formal process at the beginning. Richard, we're gonna tap into your knowledge quite a bit on that one. At the front end, to be able to formalize that process and say, look, that just needs to be done as we evolve and development becomes a little more challenging. Certainly that's just part of it. Water resources are not, they're finite. Let's just put it that way. All right, and then last significant plans, the historic resource survey. I mentioned the meeting on February 5th, Santa Fe Depot. I believe it'll be 5:30 to 7. I got to check with communications and marketing on that, but you're all invited, certainly. Neighborhood planning district overlay, zoning overlay to implement the plans. So Christina Strickland, our senior neighborhood planning, is taking the lead, working closely with Aaron, and I'm getting up to speed on where they are in that process now. Also, as you recall, the Temple Community Treasures contest still happening. We've inherited that from communications and marketing, the Main Street program, and Ayana really enjoys doing that. And so we are going to have another round. This for historic photographs of historic buildings or structures downtown, or paintings. And so April 4th is that deadline. And then May is Historic Preservation Month, so she's leading that effort as well. And then last but not least, continue on the UDC update. And I will get to a slide about where we are in that in a second. And it's going to look very similar to a slide I presented probably the last time, and that there's a story behind that. North Street Sidewalk Project, you can see just the overall scope going up to the Mayborn from downtown, and just, a photo from that packet near Jefferson Elementary. Clearly there are gaps in a sidewalk network.
It's just one side, right?
It's actually both sides.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
That would be amazing. That would really be great.
Cross your fingers and wish me luck.
Yes. And what I didn't include was all the crash data, the map from that software that, it's red spot after red spot.
If I may,
Yeah.
so we had submitted this to KTMPL. It scored well. The Georgetown Railroad Trail also scored well. When they came out with the funding scenario, we had put the Georgetown Trail as a higher priority for the city for funding through the NPO. The trail was the higher priority. So we made a deal that we would pull this project off of the KTMPO scoring, and we could secure funding for the railroad trail. Part of the reason we did that, we had submitted the railroad trail to the TxDOT Transportation Alternatives Call 2 different times, and both times were not selected. After the second time, I requested a review. Tell me what we're doing wrong. If I don't know what I'm doing wrong, I can't fix it. And the answer was, there's not enough crash data. You're sure you're going to take people away from the roads, but there's not the actual data. There's not a problem that exists that you're fixing. So we didn't score as well as maybe a different project would have. There is a lot of crash history on 3rd Street. Pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicle to vehicle, one-way car leaving the roadway. There's a lot of data that would support doing the sidewalk improvements on 3rd Street. So cross your fingers, wish me luck. Did I do a good job? We should score well enough with the transportation alternatives. They've said their priority this time around, they've changed their scoring to focus on transportation, not so much the alternatives, not recreational trails, but projects are going to let you move people on the system. So my feeling is this is a great candidate, but I won't count my chickens, whether I have 6 or fewer, until I have them in my backyard.
You've been waiting to use that one.
I have been waiting.
That was good in the chamber.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. All right.
Or rooster.
UDC. So unfortunately, I was able to use this same slide that I presented to you the last time, which doesn't mean we haven't made progress, but we are still in the developing up to 75% ready draft. And admittedly, it's kind of slow going. We meet with them bi-weekly, and we've got an agenda. We tackled TMED and data centers at the last meeting, but it's gonna have to speed up. And so Dave and I've got a meeting, the next week or so to talk about that. But now that I'm fully staffed, except for my assistant director, I need to get that. Either way, I'm gonna, I think working more closely with Jason and Cheryl, because this is a beast. And so, we use the example, the RV parks in that code, we can't spend that amount of time on each section. Otherwise, we're all going to be retired by the time it gets completed. So, we're working on it. Just want to give you a quick update on that. And, any questions? All right, now let's look at some graphs. So first one, all permits, sorry, this is not all permits. This is rezonings and plats. So this year, and so you can just see obviously October on the left, September on the far right, rezoning cases in blue and plats in orange. I mean, the bottom line is, that it is less seasonal for those kind of applications than building permits, which makes sense. But it was a total of 49 or 55 plats and 49 rezoning cases during the fiscal year. And I think what's interesting too is that our plat numbers are down, and that's because, it's because the fat has been trimmed, so to speak, in terms of which plats you really need to see. The ones that go to the county because they're further into our ETJ and have really no chance of being annexed. That has really lowered the plat volume on our end and allows us to spend a little bit more time on the challenging cases. And so I think that has worked thus far. Also, just looking at permit applications. So October of 23, one of the low points, I guess, actually, November, 848, and this is all permit applications, let's see, what is that? That is July of this past July, 3,100 permit applications. And so you can see the wide fluctuation. You can see beginning in July, actually beginning in June, July, and August, of course, in response to the tornado, huge spike. And so that is what we've just recently kind of dug out of, so to speak. And so just credit to my staff and particularly the new employees, but those who have also permit techs have been putting in a lot of extra hours, planners that have been shifting over to help that process as needed, and Jason helping wherever he possibly can. And so it really was all hands on deck. And so just to, credit to all those who have been working so hard on that.
Brian, I
Yes,
just want to
ma'am.
thank you. I know that that's been a lot of pressure and a lot of phone calls and a lot of work, and I'm really proud of you and your team for getting us back on track, and it's good work. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that. That's, and I will share that with my team because it's been absolutely a team effort. I say that a lot, but in this case, it's so unbelievably true. All right, looking at inspections, and you can see the high was 3855 in April, and so that just so happens that's when our previous chief building official left. I don't know if there's correlation. I don't know, but either way, you can see pretty high numbers. I mean, I think there were 22 business days in April, and so that was an average of 179 inspections a day. Braxton, one of our combination building inspectors just a few months ago had 94 inspections that day. And so those guys have been just absolutely just working so hard, putting in a lot of extra hours. And so now they're back to pretty normal hours. And I'm just blessed to have such a good, hardworking team, and they're very knowledgeable as well.
What's a normal load for daily inspections?
A normal load, a normal load is 25. That's on the high end of what you would like to see, 25 inspections per inspector. And so we've got 6 inspectors. So, should see no more than, with that level of personnel, 150 would be kind of the max. So we've had some days where it's been 300. It's just, so trying to keep up, and once again, Brian and David's leadership and Tracy's leadership to be able to get positions and figure out ways to manage, but we got the staff in place, and I'm happy to report that. All right, wanted to show you something that I'm not sure if it had been updated regularly, but Allison is now updating this regularly on our webpage. Just go to dx.gov/permits. This is the monthly report. And so just a screenshot to show, from the last fiscal year, we had 1,080 single-family residential permits, which it's on the high end, but I think that was tied for our 3rd highest total, yearly total, since we were tracking this starting in 2010. But what is of greatest interest, I think, is the overall total permit applications submitted, 19,318 this past year. The next highest number was in 21-22, and that's 12,000. So I think that gives you a really good understanding of the spike that we had experienced this last year. And then in the early years, 10, kind of through 17, we would see about 5,000 a year. So, 4 times that. And then just looking at permits by type, and this is for new construction. This doesn't include trade permits, fence permits, the kind of miscellaneous ones, but just, new construction, single family, duplexes, multifamily, commercial. And so the blue, single family, and then of course you see in the orange, commercial remodel. That's been a big one. Signs has been another big one. And then just looking at the percentages. So, that really just correlates to the previous. And that's all I have. Another Deckman special. I'm sure you can go to his website and purchase this if you like. And that one too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Council, anything for Brian before we move on?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
So update on purchasing, facility and construction services. Start out with purchasing. Last year, the purchasing group came in front of you as our first year that we want to keep it going is they received the Achievement of Excellence, and then they received that again this year. So very proud of that purchasing team led by Randy Faust. And then she has 7 people underneath her. Several department changes since the last time we met. We've actually restructured a bit, similar to how Performance Excellence, not Performance Excellence, People Operations operates. They have a kind of a go-to person, a generalist for each department. We've kind of structured that way too, and it's running very smooth. Much better internal customer service. They know who they can go to for assistance, and they know that there's somebody else usually available if that person isn't. But in March, we added a 3rd buyer position, and that was Alex Beaver. Then Deborah Hollingsworth, she was kind of our steady person for the last 10 years. She retired at the end of December, and we're pleased to bring on Brooksy Humes, who worked with us about 3 years ago. as an accounts payable specialist. She saw the opening and came back. And so we're real tickled to have somebody already familiar with our organization as our third buyer now. We're still busy, not as quite busy, but with storm recovery, FEMA coordination, and so forth. Randy Faust really took an active lead in doing that for our department. We're doing annual purchasing training sessions. We've videoed those, they're online and so forth. So we just want to make sure that we're always keeping our internal users apprised, because there's always turnover and new people as to how the right way is to do things. Moving on to facility services, which is comprised of purchasing, warehouse, custodial services, and facility maintenance. We have a new facilities director. I'm real pleased and grateful to have Tony Zavala now as our lead in this division. Tony started with us at the end of October, so he's got 2 months under the belt. I keep each day he comes in, it's like, Linda, new question, and he's kind of down. It's like, we're going to get there, Tony. It's not every month's going to be like this, so just bear with us. We're going to get there. There's lots of ups and downs right now, but overall, he's been a great hire for us. He supervises the purchasing warehouse, which his main person there is Kenneth Drake, our warehouse coordinator, who's been with us a year now. Real pleased, at the end of each fiscal year, we take a look at where our inventory levels are and kind of what our activity is. Basically, when they did a full inventory count at the end of September, there was no differences. Basically, what the book said we should have, we had. So that is, it's not unprecedented or anything, but really proud with that being Kenneth's first year of doing that. The other thing I saw that I was impressed with is our inventory turns. So basically how many times the inventory, if you average it out, turns per year, it went over 2.5. And that really hasn't happened in at least the last 5 years or so. We were running right around the 2. And so to have that above 2.5, I was really pleased to see that. It means we're ordering the right things, we're having the right things on hand, and we're turning inventory over. Custodial services, these are the folks that one crew that's right here starts at 2 a.m. in the morning and they get off at 10:30. We call them our rooster crew. And then we've got our sunrise crew down in the middle. They start at 5 a.m. and get off at 1:30. And then we have our sunset crew that they start at 11 o'clock and they get off at 7:30 at night. So I'm real proud of this team. They work hard to keep the facilities clean. We clean about 20 facilities, but the one thing I'll say, and it's based on the decision and support that we got from council, is we have not had to hire a custodian, a replacement in this division in almost a year. And when I talked to Gary Zaruba about that, it's like, okay, let's knock on some wood. But and it's all I really think about that pay structure and them being happy where they're at and content and being able to make a living with what we're paying them now. Our facility maintenance team, it should be comprised of 6. We're down in HVAC tech right now, but right now we have Hunter Van Horn. He's on the left. He is our electrician. He's a journeyman. James Martin has the most seniority in this division next to him, and Steve Peters, if you might see him in City Hall, because this is one of his buildings. Keith Dixon is in the blue shirt next to Steve. He is our supervisor, and then Elias Cruz is our newest member of the crew. He's one of the maintenance techs. Real proud of these guys. They take the initiative to do special projects. They're always willing and able. It's just a matter of also making sure that we're keeping priority and emphasis on preventative maintenance too. So that's what we're challenged to do, but I'm all for them wanting to do extra, but we always have to also make sure that we're maintaining what we have. On to construction services. I am so grateful to have this team. It started out 3 years ago. It was basically me and who I could get to help. Brittany Benight, we hired about 2.5 years ago. She was the first addition. She's a project manager. In March of 2024, we hired Austin Maxwell as the construction services division director, and started on January 6th with us, Jordan Peel as a project manager. I say grateful. This is a strong, solid team, and we need this as an organization to manage all the projects that we have going on. So what I'd like to do now is just highlight the projects, kind of where we're at on a lot of our vertical construction projects. Projects we've completed since we last met, we finished the roof as a result of the storm at Fire Station 7. Historic Post Office, the picture on the upper right, we replaced the roof there. Salmon's Community Center, we had an issue. Evidently, not enough glue was used when the flooring was put down there back in the renovation of this building back in 2018. So it slid and it was a safety concern. So we just recently completed that project. The 311 call center, which is on the second floor of the Jamie Clements complex. That's also complete with the exception of you recently authorized the purchase of a backup generator. So if we do lose power, it's going to be important for that 311 call center to be in operation. So
That's not open yet, is it?
the call center is in operation. And I think you'll be getting an update from Heather soon on her activities today.
They're real close to going live.
We actually just had an update today, and I talked to Heather. They're kind of in beta mode so they've got a soft launch going on. And they have transferred, they have began taking solid waste calls as of, I think, maybe the 6th. Yeah, Justin was like, here. You can have them. Yeah, but we haven't done the official launch yet. So it's kind of in soft launch beta mode, but we are, she showed us the chat bot today. It's looking good. So you can pull up the little icon appears on a website when you get there, and you can ask it any question that you have. And so it's coming along. We're getting very close.
They're in the UBO?
They are.
There, yep, second floor, right in the middle. Yep. And another project that we did finish up, of course, about a year ago this time, we had the grand opening for our new animal shelter expansion and renovation. But we went ahead and determined that the original dog kennels, they're pretty run down with the chain link doors and so forth. So with some leftover funding we had on that project, we upgraded those dog kennels. So everything is now kind of fresh and new in there. Moving on to projects we have under construction. I'm going to start out with the Nathaniel Mitchell Service Center Building A expansion and renovation. This was a 2-phase project. We finished phase 1, which was the building of an approximate 11,000 square foot addition in September. That's the entrance to that. It's the west end of the service center out there on Avenue H. So when you walk into the building, here's kind of the look that you see. And you can see the open workspace and the photograph second from the left there, the open workspace that we have. And then just an example of how the offices were finished and how the training room was finished out in that building. The second phase of that project is nearing completion, and that is the renovation. That project would be totally done except for the tornadic winds that came through in May basically let loose the east wall of that building. The doors basically forced open, the construction doors, and it actually forced the east wall off. So we're in the process of actually should be awarding a change order on that or requesting your authorization for a change order on that coming up in February to get that fixed.
Belinda, we moved in this week.
You moved in? Cool. So the only department that's not moved in, or not department, division though, is the administration. So Don's office and Kenton's and Ralph. So moving on to another project under construction, the public safety training campus. This is, of course, is out on State Highway 36, where we've got Fire Station 8 and the training center next to it. So basically what we're nearing completion on is the construction of the driving skills pad, the simunition shoot house, the covered trailer storage, and the drafting pit. So that's all represented in the number 10 up there is the kind of the area we're talking about. And then the sim house is number 11 in orange in the upper right-hand corner. This is a look. I took this from a photo. There's cameras that Chief Randall's mounted on top of the burn building. So I took it and kind of pieced it together. But this is looking out on the skills pad, which is going to be a nice area for police and fire and solid waste and anybody that needs to train drivers to basically train their drivers. This right in front, that isn't a new building that was built along with the burn building. That's a fire storage, but behind it is the sim house. The picture down at the bottom is representing the taxiway, or not the road that we built, or it should be constructed totally now, that goes out to the taxiway. Before, there was no way, if there was an emergency on the airport grounds, basically personnel in Fire Station 8 would have to go drive all the way around in order to get to it. This will enable them to basically pull right out, not get into traffic, and get out there and assist as needed with any incident that should occur. And this is just another picture of the road to the taxiway that's nearing completion. I think it is complete now. This is a up close picture that's already in use of the storage building area. And then this is the Simunition Shoot House right adjacent. This is right here on the left is that fire storage building. You can see the covered patio area and then go into the Simunition Shoot House. You can see different windows and so forth. They'll be using that for training purposes. And then the right, you can see the catwalk up above, where basically we have purchased with your authorization a partitionable wall system that they'll be able to configure in different training scenarios. But the supervisors and trainers will be up above in that catwalk and basically be able to watch and inflict different scenarios and so forth right above them. Is that okay, Chief?
Works for me.
Okay. Another project under construction is the historic post office. We are in the midst of the HVAC system upgrade, and also that includes some electrical upgrades also. It's going very well. Elevator refurbishment is on the heels of that project. This is just photos from the basement. That is actually cleared out. I could have updated that photo that I got yesterday that just basically shows that old boiler out of there, and that whole room is just empty, which is so nice based on just you'd walk in there, it's like, what's this, what's that? It was just a convoluted mess of equipment. On the first floor, this is kind of the way it looks right now. That's that meeting room if you've ever been into a meeting, right beyond the foyer when you walk in. Basically, though, as you see, all of the ceilings have been taken down in order to run new ductwork and so forth. So the other thing I want to point out in this photograph is we'll have an opportunity at the end of this. There's paint chipping on the plaster up above. So when we come in, we've got some floors that we need to replace, and we have some plaster repairs to do. So we want to get this building kind of spruced up and to the way it should be, as I believe, as a historical building. Before we move everybody back in, because right now it's empty of furniture. This is just the third floor of that building. Moving on to another project under construction is the Santa Fe Community Market. This is what the vision is that it will look like. This is where we started on this project, in aerial view before anything began. So labeled number 1 there is that feed store. That's the newest building that Temple Feed and Seed built, and that was kind of their primary retail store. Behind that, number 2 was their warehouse building. We actually have torn that down, which I'll show you in the next aerial view. Label number 3 is the historic masonry feed store building. It's one of the remaining kind of historic buildings on this campus. And number 4 was just an adjacent warehouse expansion. And number 5, we were hoping to save this structure, which was the historic stone building. However, after the strong winds that came through in May and so forth, it just was determined it wasn't structurally sound. Good thing is, though, we were able to save the stone from the building. So when this project comes back to be, we're reusing that stone that was taken off of that building.
Is that building going to be rebuilt in some fashion, or is that stone going to be used like for a pathway?
It's going to be used, as I understand it, as kind of a backdrop. What number 5 is turning into is a entertainment pavilion. And we were going to basically making it kind of an open air concept, but keep the stone walls in place. Now we've kind of pulled it all off and re-excavated, and actually found a couple more than one foundation under there as they were establishing the footings and so forth for the new pavilion. But that area will have an entertainment pavilion, open air still, with the stone on the bottom base.
Okay.
So this is a look at, actually, this was an aerial that was taken the beginning of December, but similar to ways, however, there's been more excavation that's taken place. This is a look inside. We do have some opportunities on this project, and we most likely will be coming back to you for requesting your authorization of a change order with Wright Builders. But inside the historic feed store, evaluation was further done, and we're kind of evaluating how we're going to use this facility into the future. And it really came to be that structurally it wasn't safe. So we're most likely going to be coming forth with a recommendation to replace that roof. We believe the walls are structurally sound, but in order to preserve the history in this area, we want to preserve and the best we can this building and put it back to use in some form or fashion in this Santa Fe Community Market Plaza. The other thing is attached to that was the warehouse expansion. So inside, this is inside the warehouse expansion here. You can see the light coming in through that, and that adjoins this historic feed store. It shares a wall with it, but we would like to put some new steel siding on that, so we don't have open grounds for rats and so forth coming into the building, since it's right along the railroad tracks. And the other thing issue we'd like to get addressed is there is a loading dock to this warehouse. It constantly fills up with water. It's not very safe to have that there, so we want to infill that area too. So we'll be coming forward with that.
Want to do a sump pump.
It's determined the best use of, or however it's determines the best, and it's really, we don't see that as a good long-term solution. That's what we're currently doing.
You good with that?
Let's talk about that more.
Okay. Another project under construction, it's nearing completion, is the IT server room. This project, we're not managing with our construction services team, but the engineering team is helping us because it's really civil. But south of Central Fire, that's what the building is you see there. Basically, when we built Central Fire back in 2010, we really wanted this whole block. And then it was the case where Bank of America at the time said, no, we've got to maintain our presence, so we couldn't get the full block. Well, shortly after we constructed Central Fire, we got it, and we also got a drive-through bank. So really, we don't have, it wasn't a good use for it. We wanted to improve the space, so we have cleared it out at this point, and we are constructing a secured parking lot is what is under construction, and y'all authorized that contract a few months ago. Another project that you authorized recently was changing the airport headquarters, the doors to automatic doors like you typically see in an airport. It's been really challenging with these doors here because of the high winds that we get out at the airport, that they just stay open. So that's another project that will be under construction and completed very soon. It won't take long. Upcoming construction projects, we've got replacement of the library roof and skylight system. This is all a result of the storm. Those skylights up there, it's actually 2 skylight systems, and they cracked as a result of the storm, and they're leaking into the water. So Natalie, anytime we get rain, we've got buckets on the floor. So we've got to get that resolved. Another project that we'll be kicking off very soon, you authorized for us to move forward with some improvements to the police facility, HVAC improvements. Chief, it's going to happen. So we're trying to get just reliable heating and cooling to this building. So that's the goal in this project. And at the end of this project, that's the goal, that we'll have all that along with the control system that will be able to access and operate the system.
And he will have heat next week, right?
You will have heat next week.
I hope so.
Good news.
Projects that we have in design right now, the police indoor shooting range and classroom building. This is in the business plan for us to start construction of this project this year. So they're actually in the process of completing construction documents right now. Moving along nicely. This is just a rendering of what the architect envisions it to be like. The classroom buildings on the left that will also house the special investigations unit, and then the indoor shooting range on the right, which will also house some evidence vehicles and so forth. Library lighting upgrades to LEDs. The library, we upgraded all the buildings to LEDs about 5 or 6 years ago, but the library didn't because we don't technically own, the city doesn't technically own the library, so it wasn't eligible for the grant money that we use. So our goal is to get that done. The design is almost complete on that. Municipal complex expansion we're working on, along with police facility chiller replacement. So we've got some challenges yet. The chiller though, it's on its last leg as we understand it. So what we want to do is get that designed, hopefully be able to install that there's adequate room to make a more efficient system. And then we'll be coming back to you in the next few months after the design is complete to basically purchase those chillers. So they'll be available and ready for installation next fall when it turns cool again. Our construction services to-do list, storm recovery. Austin Maxwell came on with us in March. The storm happened and it was the end of March. Storm happened on May 22nd, and he was my go-to guy because we needed help in order to get all of our city facilities reviewed, analyzed, work with the insurance companies. So he's really been heading up that. One of our bigger things that we just recently got signed off from TML on, that's our insurance. The risk pool is our insurance, is the airport canopy. We just finished this building, of course, last year, but it basically with those strong winds that you can see how the panels blew off. We've taken panels off since then just for safety reasons. We certainly didn't want anything to blow off and hit an airplane or a person or anything. So that's a big one that's going to be coming down the road, almost $1 million to do what we need to do out at the airport. Other roofs, Salmon's Community Center, Governor Party House, the animal shelter, Fire Station 3 and 5, the Solid Waste Administration Building, Hillcrest Cemetery. Those are just some of the bigger ones. We're also kicking off with the fire department, a new Fire Station 7, kind of design of a prototype that we want to use as we have several in the master plan and the business plan to build over the upcoming years. So we want new Fire Station 7, which you authorized the purchase of the land for a month or so ago. That will be our first one. Fire Station 4 renovation, along with 6 and 2, 4, and 6. They just really have one restroom facility. And with the mix of females and males in the workforce of fire personnel now, we really need to have more than one restroom accommodation. So we're going to work on that. Lions Junction lifeguard room addition, that's in the business plan, and we're busily working on that one, along with Fleet Services adding an awning to their building so they can work on things not just inside, but if they need to work on some things outside and not be covered in the sun or rain or whatever. So that is my update. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And a question, is the silos part of the open market? I seen somebody working over there.
The silos is not,
can you go?
It's private.
What about the little grain bins? I think are,
No.
but the little, somewhere you had a picture of the grain bins. Are those part of the project? Right there, those
are not there anymore.
No, I was speaking on
Yes,
that.
not.
Those big ones are Juki feeds.
Oh, they're still there.
Yeah.
Belinda, you had some,
very historic.
I think some flooding issues at the service center and some deteriorating, around the parking area. Is it solid waste? Is that taken care of?
We're still working, and yes, I didn't highlight that in my slides, but it's still an active project that we're working on.
Okay.
Are you trying not to say lawsuit?
Hmm?
Is that what you're doing?
No.
What about the recycling center, the pit that was
Yes.
being torn up?
Yeah, that is very close. We had a really good meeting yesterday where we wanted an independent review of the drawings for the fix. And so we hired WJE Engineering, and they looked at it, had a really good meeting with MRB Group yesterday, their engineer. And they're gonna make some tweaks based on our independent review of their drawings, and then we're ready to move forward and get that fixed.
Wasn't there an issue with the service center maybe after the tornado that had, maybe it's been blown off its foundation or moved or?
Yes.
In fact, we never really heard much detail about that.
Yeah, so it actually goes back to, part of it, what, again, we hired WJE as our engineer on that, which is supported by TML Risk Pool for us to do that. It's covered by insurance, but it resulted, they concluded that basically structurally, there was a ribbon wall of windows there that didn't have the structural components design wise the way it needed to have had when it was originally constructed, was a large contributing factor to what happened. So basically, we now have a design complete on that one. We should actually be getting pricing this afternoon, but we're retaining trim built because part of the renovation included that suite where that's impacted by that. And so the goal is to, as soon as we can award a change order for that work to trim built, that we can get that to bed and closed and basically finish the renovation as planned.
That's the same change order that she was briefing on earlier.
I missed it. Yeah.
That is coming, that is forthcoming.
We talked about the wall actually moving at one point.
Well, it appears that it does, and it really, it does, but because it didn't have the structural integrity, some things let loose when those strong winds. So it's shored up right now. For safety reasons, it's shored up from the outside, thanks to help from the fire department, helped us do that,
Is that an
so.
upper wall area or was that at the foundation?
No, it's the upper part is actually where it's moving, it's not on the foundation part.
All right.
Anything else?
So building 3 and 4 in this picture they're still standing
They are,
and will remain in use.
yes.
Right. Number 4 is the one that needs the new metal to keep the vermin out.
Yes. Number 3 needs a new roof. Structurally too, there's shoring up with columns in there that is like, they're bent.
In 3 or 4 or both?
3 has that issue.
Okay.
4 has the issue really with just the facade, the steel, where it's been hit with forks of a forklift or something over the
Yeah.
years.
And the loading dock.
Yes, and the loading dock issue.
Then you're going to put electricity in both of
That's a
them.
good point. We want to, plan was not to have electricity, but in order to make these buildings usable, really need to have some lights or something. So that's part of what we want to change order in.
We'll have exterior lighting, though, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, there's-
Floodlights or.
Yes, yes. Yeah, the whole site had it. For some reason, though, we took it out of those 2 structures.
That whole project budget's about $3.5 million. With the change orders, what do you think it's gonna go to? Or
It's
just
not gonna
guess?
exceed $250,000.
We think about $250,000.
To put electric in and do something with the,
The electricity's right there, it won't be bad. And all we're talking about is, we need something to light it up. We're not talking about like adding HVAC or anything like that, so.
Okay. to do all of it, including the loading dock and then, of course, we don't know what we're doing on the loading dock.
The loading dock, I think, the discussion was just, it has some historical character and nature to it, and not to fill it in. And they talked about putting a sump pump in it versus filling it.
Historic loading dock?
No, I think the issue was, until we really know how, we need to program that space as we haven't operated it yet as a market. Is it really, do we need to wait to make sure we don't need the
Service
loading
it,
dock before we fill it in was the conversation.
My concern is safety. Some kids are they're gonna mess around over there and someone's gonna get hurt, I'm afraid. It's too open. It's not tight enough to keep them out. If I was a kid, I would absolutely
Yeah.
be exploring around there.
I'm been on the roof.
We're gonna have security cameras.
You guys?
You can accomplish that, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anything else?
I knew it, that's not historical, but fit the warehouse. Character, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna count it.
There's a guy that has a couple of sump pumps at his house. They're pretty convenient. And not hard to maintain. I mean,
We need to.
put a sign on it, say kids stay off of this.
This is good. Yeah.
That's kind of the question is if we, because we haven't really had the facility in use yet, the comment from the project committee was just, don't consider not, taking that option away until you know if you need it or not. That was the feedback we got.
We have a loading dock and it's wonderful. It's very useful. But it also has a drain at the bottom, so we don't have to.
You don't have a sump pump?
Do not.
There's probably, that's too flat around there, there's probably no way to.
That's what I'm wondering, where do you drain it to?
Yeah. That's-
There.
And they actually,
Pump it
KPA
back
looked
up.
at that and there's not a good solution for it, so.
Pump it out somewhere, hopefully just run off onto the ground.
Oh, around this little range.
What else? All right, look at us. 4:30. And no executive sessions. Nothing. So today we only start the meeting 10 minutes late. I'll see y'all downstairs at 4:52.